video is for the rate of change foldable for lesson 1-22. So rate of change and slope are actually the same thing. So just reminders, slope we represent with the letter M or with the equation rise over run. So to find the slope of a line, you need to find two nice points. And when you do that, you can use your calculator. And so if you remember, we can go into Stat and into our list, and we enter our x's in list 1 and our y's in list 2. So on this graph here, my x's are -2 and +1, and my y's are -2 and 0. So once you have your list in, you go to Stat, over to Calc, 4 for linear regression, and then Calculate. And so on this one, we've got repeating decimals. So again, just a reminder on repeating decimals, if you type those into your calculator, and you have to go all the way to the end, you can do the alpha y4 function. No, hang on. And it will turn that repeating decimal into a fraction for us. So on this one, our slope is 2/3, and our y-intercept is -2/3. And so remember, again, in your calculators, it's going to list slope as your a value, and b is going to be your y-intercept. So this is the -0.6 repeating, and so that's a -2/3. The other method you can use is rise over run. And so in this example of the negative, to do rise over run, on this one, we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our slope on this negative graph would be -3/5. Now, to get the y-intercept here, you are going to have to use your calculator. You're going to have to put those numbers into your list in order to get the right y-intercept. And so here we've got a -2 and a 3 as our x's. So -2 and 3. And then our y's are a +3 and a -1. And so you can see here it's -0.6, and -0.6 as a fraction is the -3/5, and then 0.8 is 4/5. So again, if you're wanting to make those into fractions, you just type the decimal in, alpha y 4, and then it'll turn it into a fraction for you. All right, so lines that go straight across, nice flat lines like this, remember those have a 0 slope. And the y-intercept is going to be whatever your y values are. So here my y values are 2, so my y-intercept would be 2. So on this 0 slope, my slope is 0, my y-intercept is 2, and so the equation of these would just be y equals 2. And then finally on no slope, we've got these vertical lines. So remember that those are no slope, they're undefined, and these are the only equations, the linear equations we're going to have that start with x equals, and they're going to equal whatever your x value is. So x equals 2. All right, so on these next ones, they've just given us ordered pairs. So on these, we do need to type our list in. And so you're going to go to Stat and enter your x's in list 1, so 5 and 8, and then your y's are 1 and 3. And then you can go over to Calculate and do your linear regression. So here I've got this 0.6 repeating again and -2.3 repeating. So the 0.6 repeating is my slope, the -2.3 repeating is my y-intercept. If I would write those as, or if I'm just going to write the slope on this one, the slope would be 2/3 as a fraction. So on the next one, go into Stat, into your list. So my x's here are -6 and +6. and my y's are 4 and -5. So here I'd get a slope of -0.75, which is the same as -3/4. And so I'm not going to type these next two in the calculator just to save time on the video. So if it's a 0 slope, one way you can tell is the two y values are going to be the same. So here they're both 2's, and that's what gives that away, that that slope is 0. On no slope, what gives it away is your x values are all the same. So they're both 1 here. And so if you would type those in, you would get an error, and that slope is undefined. All right, so unit rate. Unit rate is a rate in which the second quantity in the comparison is 1. And so one way that I've always taught how to solve these is using the tic-tac-toe method. So you draw a tic-tac-toe board and you label one of these sections rate, and the other section unit rate, and then these two horizontal lines are going to be your two objects that you're comparing. So here I'm comparing bottles and cases. And so what you're going to do is you just fill in the blanks. So I've got 120 bottles and I've got 6 cases. And if I want to know the unit rate, I want to know how many bottles are in one case. So to solve these, we cross multiply. So I'm looking for the unit rate here. So I'm going to cross multiply. So 1 times 120, and that's going to give me a 120. And then your final number you divide by. So this just kind of gives you a format that you can use. So if I would do this, I would do 1 times 120, and then I would divide by 6. And that gives me a unit rate of 20. So in words, what that looks like is 20 bottles per case. The other thing you can do is you can put your unit rate or the object that you want as your unit rate on the bottom of a fraction. So for here, I've got $84 for 4 books. Money is going to usually be on the top. That is usually your dependent variable. So in this case, you could just put a fraction in, and so the money would go on top and the books would go on bottom because I want to know how much one book cost. And so here it gives you an answer of 21. So it would be $21 per book. So either method works. Just make sure that you're putting the right pieces in the right places. So on this next one, I've got 60 pencils in 5 packages. So I want to know how many pencils are in one package, which means I would put packages on the bottom of my fraction. And here I get 12. So there would be 12 pencils per package. And the last one is 420 miles in 7 hours. So 420 would go on the top because I want to know how far we travel in 1 hour. So I would put hours on the bottom. And here I get 60. So 60 miles per hour. Now doing unit rate from graphs is a little bit different. If you don't have nice, pretty points, then you have to find nice, pretty points. But what you're looking for is what your y is when your x is 1. So remember that the horizontal line or the horizontal axis down here is always your x. So you would find 1 on your x-axis, and you would go up and you would see where this line would be y. So wherever the line is, where x is 1, whatever your y value is, that would be your unit rate. So this one is at 50. So in this graph, we're traveling 50 miles per hour. That's our unit rate. So this one is nice and pretty too. So right here, my x is 1. So I'd go up to see what my y would be there. And it would be 3 books. So these bottom two are the ones that you're going to have to find nice, pretty points. And if you notice here, both these graphs are going to go through the origin. And so one of your points could be 0, 0. So on number 7 here, our unit rate is 4 cups per quart. And see if I can get this last one to move. And then this graph would be $45 per ticket. All right, and in this final sheet, I'm going to have to start a new video to do this final sheet with you.